Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to Shelf Stories. Jason here with another installment of my running vlog, which I call Digital Citizen, where I observe online conversations, especially the points of friction when can't seem to get along, and I try to offer something helpful and constructive so that we can a little bit better share this common digital space. So this one, I wanted to come down into my safe zone, my man cave. You see my games in the background. Normally with these reflections, I'm following the conversation online wherever I am on my phone, park or my office, and I see something interesting, I'll pop it up and record wherever I am. Here, I wanted to take a little bit of time because this is a conversation about safe spaces. And it goes a little bit something like this. So here comes Jason. I'm talking about cultural stuff and gender and race and touching the buttons, right? Good trouble. I say it. I announce it that I'm here to cause trouble for whatever reasons that I deem good. And I know I observe a lot of power differentials. I'm always talking about the margins. Folks in the margins, women, POC, LGBTQ, and in the center is, I try to avoid saying this too often, but let's just be real. White men in the center of the board gaming hobby. And power, privilege, and all those conversations. And I think a response that I've heard has been, I have power and privilege? The white guy will say that. They're wondering, it's like, how can this person say that I have power and privilege? White guy observing that, in other parts of their lives, there is no power and privilege. Maybe they're just, employee of some place, and, they're in their workspaces and in their families, in their schooling or wherever other social circle there is, they're on the margins too. They are the freaks and the geeks of society. The ones that like Batman and other comic books, the ones that, have lots of achievements on their video games and they dive into whatever geeky culture stuff or games or whatever it is. And out there, weird, stigmatized and misunderstood, and gaming represents that safe space, that refuge. It is the one space in a lot of people's lives. Not everybody experiences it this way, but enough do. And I think all of us know someone or are familiar with that experience at some level where this space is the only space where I'm free to be a freak or a geek. And then there's a resentfulness because here comes, Jason, and I've heard a lot of times people talk about it in terms of bullying. Like Jason and whoever else is, articulating the same things are like bullies. In the sense that, as marginalized folks, we have a card, the victim card. And, we call out something and it's like, as a blank, as a POC, you can't say anything about that because we're marginalized and, we're going to talk about this now. And the other person will state a disagreement. Maybe it's racial or gender or whatever. Maybe it's not. It's just a disagreement. There's a fear that, you disagree? You must be a racist. You must be a sexist. And that becomes, or it's experienced as, a bullying move. And so out there, bullying and misunderstanding and judgment and whatever. So how here in the gaming space, more of the same. Plays out differently, but more of the same. Okay. So so many ways to address this. And I think a lot of folks on my side are kind of getting exasperated. Let's talk about power and privilege. And, it's such a complicated conversation. Why are we shutting it down with labels and blah, 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 blah. I want to try to get under all of that. Because I hear that. That I hear a lot, maybe more than most things. The idea of freaks and geeks seeking safety. And all I want to say to that is, me too. I don't want to bully anybody. I don't want to play any card. I don't want to play a victim. I also want the same thing that you do. And I'll explain how that works in a second, but I want to talk about the commonality here. I totally feel that idea that out there is lack of safety. I grew up, playing video games and, the awkward with people and glasses and, not being able to fully participate in sports without putting down my glasses and having tape on them and, going through all that, preferring to be inside. A lot of introverts in our hobby. I prefer to be inside playing solitaire than outside and playing around and all that kind of thing. I feel that. I feel the judgment. I feel, there's people out there that have very difficult family situations or just wherever that works out. And gaming being that safe haven for all those different situations. It's not just the outside stuff. It's the inner stuff too. As a psychotherapist, we have a concept in my discipline called the inner critic or the inner ogre or the inner gremlin. I've called it a lot of different things. It's that chattering in your head. I think of it like monkeys just clanging cymbals and flinging poo and making just a big, massive negative ruckus. And I think most of us recognize it on some level. That voice that says, you're a loser, you're alone. Why can't you be successful? Why can't you, accomplish your goals, meet somebody, be social, lose weight or gain weight or look better or deal with X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. And in a way, it's more vicious than the outside stuff because we can't escape this. And so every single little bit of refuge becomes that much more tightly held and valued. When there's a game on the table and game night's there, for however many hours it takes to play that game and be in that space, that is refuge from the inner voice that is so hard to escape. And so it becomes that much more overwhelming when someone like me or comes from the outside and causes ruckus and whatever. So it's like there's that much more resentment built up in the system. And I'm really, really sorry about that. And that's why I want to make this video, because I wanted to put it out there that I get it. Along with some of the outer voices, I have my own inner critic, my stuff too. And I don't want to get too into it. Maybe I'll do this in a separate video, but I have my own stuff. I've been depressed in my life. And twice in my life, I have been really depressed. And anybody who has been depressed knows exactly what I'm talking about with capital R, capital D, really depressed. In those situations, I can honestly say that gaming provided me the safety. Gaming played a big part in saving my life. When I was younger, when I was a teenager, it was Dungeons and Dragons, role playing. It was comic books, and it was sports, gaming in general. And as an adult, it was back into D&D and board games, and some of the other stuff here. That is sacred, and so I want to make it really clear with this little dialogue that when some kind of cultural conversation happens, the intention is not to just bully, exercise power, ruin people's fun, bring people down. I'm very sorry that some people get that impression. I'd like to just put it out there that is not what the aim is. And so here I am talking about gaming as this sacred opportunity for geeks and freaks like ourselves to realize our authentic selves in safety. And so what happened? I'm this activist voice now. Back in the day, I wasn't. When I was a kid, I just go along to get along like a lot of other folks. Nothing really changed with the dynamics of gaming and geeky culture. It was more like my perceptions and how I looked at stuff. Definitely changed. When I was a kid, I was very used to the kind of cultural and hobby silos. I go from one place, go from another, boom, boom, boom. I had my bike. I lived in Brooklyn, New York. And if you know anything about a big city, you have enclaves. You go different places, you want to do different things. So if I wanted to play D&D or read comics, it was a lot of white kids in that particular scenario. If I wanted to play street ball, it was a lot of black kids. And it wasn't totally exclusive. There was a little bit of cross-pollination. You look at the demographic just on a surface level and you see the difference. I still remember this too. I had me and a Dominican friend, we played handball. You have a little rubber blue ball and a wall, and you kind of hit it back and forth. And sometimes we'd play our friends both white friends who played paddleball. Same sport, but with a paddle instead of our hands. So we'd play each other, and it was pretty cool. I didn't really think about it. It's like, why is that group playing that game with that level of resources available to them, and why is this group playing this game? And whatever. Didn't think about it. I didn't think about it at the time. Another thing I didn't think about at the time, there was one day where I'm playing street ball, I'm having a good time, and then it's 5:30, time to get on the bike and head to D&D. What a day, right? Street ball, D&D, a really great life, huh? And had my bag, and one of the black kids came up to me, and he was, not like the jock type. He was a leaned, freaking geek like me. I was like, "Where are you going?" I'm playing D&D. Take out my player's handbook, show him. Guy's like, "Nah, I'm good. That whatever. You do your thing." And I went back. I didn't think about it. It's like, whatever. It's like that wasn't his thing. And maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But, looking back now, what am I showing him? I'm showing him, white faces. I'm showing him white paradigms. Ye old merry English paladins and, elves and dwarves. These are very, Middle Earth Tolkien descended from, that area of the world and has that cast to it. So could it have been different had it showed something that was a little bit more of the world, a little bit more of his experience? We like to say representation matters. I like to think of it as like a pop, like when you see a familiar thing, there's like this, ooh, oh, that's cool. And, if I'm showing him the supplement, then there's nothing familiar for him to see, at least definitely back in the day when I was, doing this. And I was cool with that. I didn't think about it. I'd just go to the silos and enjoy the things. Nowadays, I'm not as cool with it anymore. When I was a kid, I didn't think about this stuff, but now, grown, have had experiences. I'd rather encourage a bigger, broader tent, the biggest, broadest tent I possibly can. That encompasses as much diversity of perspectives, race, class, everything. Nice big gaming tent rather than the silos. So the reason being, number one, I just think it's better gaming. It's more diversity, more interesting stories, more interesting perspectives. I just think that keeps us on our toes. I've experienced it in my life, and as much as I've been able to cultivate, and it is awesome. So as much as I can encourage that, that's great. The second thing is when I hear folks say, I'll say, okay, well, let's change up the games. Like, well, we have these games. You get your games. If you really want games, women can make games. Everybody can play. There's room for us, but we're all kind of in the little niches. What that rings to me is separate but equal. And separate but equal, if you look at the history, I'm speaking as an American, but I think every country has their own version of that. Separate but equal doesn't quite work out ever in terms of who has the material resources, who has the fun, so to speak. It always seems like some groups get the lion's share over others, but you just kind of let that go. So I'm going to push back against the silos and continue to advocate for this truly multicultural big tent. And so I've continued to have back and forth conversations. And I can imagine someone saying that, Jason, you're over-exaggerating the sense of silos. There are no doors. There are no gates. It's all open for everybody. And a lot of folks will point to their own personal virtue to illustrate. At my table, I do not exclude anybody. If you're any race, any class, it doesn't matter to me as long as you know how to roll dice and add and take your turn at a pretty good rate. You make jokes, you're part of the group. It doesn't matter. So what are you talking about with these silos? And I don't doubt that in terms of individual virtue, there's a lot of folks that are, open like that. And thank goodness. I think there are enough folks out there that are like that, but that's not everybody. Unfortunately, that doesn't really scale. When you look at the bigger picture, when you look at the level of community, when you look at who is making the games, who's on the games, who is represented or feels represented. I'm going to go off of the great Tanya Poboda and her endless trove of statistics about the current state of board games, the demographics, that is. At scale, looking community-wide, it seems like we're still struggling, no matter how open an individual person says they are. And I use this as an analogy to explain. So let's say I have this big open table. I'm in my basement, I'm in my safety. I'm actually at my gaming table right now. And I say it's open. Anybody can come in. But here I am in my basement. And my door may be open. But how's anybody going to know to come in? And you have a whole bunch of people in the suburb. Their doors are open. They're saying, come on in. Gaming is fine. Nobody's actually going to come in. Who's just going to walk into somebody's house? And if they don't actively feel invited, if there's not an actual tangible draw, people aren't coming out of their house and engaging in the public square and being open and welcoming actively, not just to my personal table, but taking ownership of the community as a whole. That's what I'm trying to do, right? And this whole discussion is about changing and correcting and answering some misunderstandings. I began this whole thing was like, okay, we're in this very friction point. You're talking about all these political things. You're dividing. You're, trying to take stuff away. All this misunderstanding of what, I'm trying to present here. And so I made a video to be like, well, okay, so we can have friction points. We can discuss how siloed is this hobby. I have my perspective, but people have different perspectives, and I'm willing to talk about that. I think we're pretty darn siloed, and I think the statistics back me up, but there are other people whose personal experiences do not conform to that. So let's talk about it. Rather than staying there because we're just going to get into heat and no light, I want to at least establish a baseline for that conversation so that when I say something, I'm not coming at it from like on high, playing victim card, trying to divide people. It's from a common place. Freaks and geeks like us all belong in gaming. Every single demographic person belongs in gaming. I think we have work to do to get there. And that's where I might differ. But at least the baseline that I want to establish is that we're all freaks and geeks trying to find that safety and that fun and that community, and we just have different ways to go about it. If we could start there, I think we can try to have better conversations. I know I'm a pretty hopeful guy. If you could change your mind, you could change the world, people. So until next time, later, everybody.